Alright everybody, let's dive into these holiday drinks. What's up everybody? Welcome back to part 2 of this 12 recipes of Christmas series that I'm doing. If you haven't already seen it, go ahead and check out part 1 to this series where we made 2 different types of bundt cakes. But today we're going to be covering holiday drinks, so we're going to be making eggnog, hot cocoa, apple cider, and peppermint mochas entirely from scratch. It's going to be wild, so stick around. Alright, let's kick this thing off with my favorite drink on the list, and that is eggnog. And guess what? It's made from eggs. So go ahead and crack 6 large eggs into a separate container, and then I just like to fish the yolks out like this, just in case one of them breaks. Be sure to get as little egg whites in this as possible, and just go ahead and add these to a bowl. But before we continue with those eggs, we need to add 3 cups of whole milk to a medium-sized pot and place that over medium heat. You don't want to boil this, you just want to bring it up until it's nice and steamy. Now back to our eggs. All you want to do is just break these yolks with a whisk, and then you just want to whisk these together for about 30 to 40 seconds until they become lighter in color. And as you can see, they've lightened up a bit. Now we are slowly going to add in 1 cup of granulated sugar, so I would say add this in 1 to 2 tablespoons at a time, continuously whisking, and just add in little by little until all of your sugar has been added. You'll know it's ready when it looks like this. It'll naturally get some air incorporated, but it should be nice and creamy. Now your milk should be up to temperature now, and you don't want to immediately pour this egg sugar mix into the pot. You want to ladle in a little bit of this warm milk to temper the eggs. If you add these directly into the pot, you will have clumps of scrambled eggs in your eggnog, which nobody wants. So just slowly ladle this in for about 3 or 4 ladlefuls, and then you can add all of that back to the pot, and you will have eggnog free of scrambled egg. If there's any sugar left behind in that egg mixture, be sure to go ahead and add it. And then we're going to give this a quick stir, and you're going to just cook this on low. Turn it down to low and cook it for 10 to 15 minutes depending on how thick you want your eggnog. Just keep in mind that this will thicken once it's completely cooled and in your refrigerator. For the spice mix, 1 teaspoon of ground cinnamon, 1.5 teaspoons of ground nutmeg, 1/4 teaspoon of ground cloves, and finally a teaspoon of ginger. Go ahead and stir this spice mix around. It's okay if it has some clumps in it. We're going to get those out in a second. Strain this into a pitcher until all of it has been added to your pitcher, and you should be left behind with a few clumps. Just toss those in the trash can. Now all that's left to do is add 1.5 cups of heavy cream to your eggnog mixture, and there you have it guys, you have eggnog. So just stir this around really quickly. Really be sure to go ahead and stir in all of that heavy cream. Be sure it's thoroughly incorporated. Then all that's left to do is just bottle this eggnog up and place it in the refrigerator. I got these bottles at Dollar Tree for only $1. I also really like to use these for cold brew coffee, and I will have a video on that very soon. Personally, my favorite way to drink this is to pour it in a glass over ice, and obviously you can go ahead and add any bourbon or cognac that you want to this, and I like to just dust the top of mine with a little bit of cinnamon and then enjoy your eggnog. Alright, and next up we have homemade hot chocolate. This is not Swiss Miss, this is the real deal. So you're going to need 3 ounces of dark chocolate. I recommend 50 or 60, no higher, because this is really rich. And you want to chop this up extremely finely like I'm doing here. The reason that you want to do this is so it melts properly in the milk. Using this movement here, go ahead and chop this up until it reaches this consistency that you see. Go ahead and scrape it into a pile. Grab yourself a little snack here off the top. To a medium pot, add 4 cups of the milk of your choice. I'm using whole milk, and you're just going to bring this up to a simmer, adding in 3 tablespoons of cocoa powder. Be sure to sift this or it will have clumps. Go ahead and dissolve that completely. Next, add in 2 tablespoons of sugar. If you want to, you can go ahead and add a half cup, but I like for people to be able to sweeten their hot chocolate how they please, and I personally like mine a little bit more bitter. Once your sugar is completely dissolved, go ahead and add in all of your finely chopped dark chocolate. Then I like to initially stir mine with a spoon because a lot of people complain that this gets kind of thick, but it should be relatively thick. But if you start with a spoon, you won't incorporate too much air into it. So just stir this constantly for 5 minutes with a spoon. Then at the end, you're going to grab your whisk and whisk this until it is the thickness that you desire. Also, you do want to be sure that you stir with a spoon until all of the chocolates dissolve for the complete 5 minutes. And this will naturally thicken during that time period. And as you can see, it's nice, smooth, and velvety looking, and it is thick enough to where it kind of coats the back of the spoon when I dip it in it. Alright, so to make apple cider, you're going to need roughly 8 to 9 apples. I just got 3 varieties here, starting with Red Delicious, which is kind of sweet and crisp, Opal apples, which I've never tried, and then Granny Smith, which are pretty tart and are good for an apple cider. Now, just taking a knife, I'm going to cut each side off of these apples. So in total, just making 4 cuts here per apple and just leaving out the core. Then from there, I'm going to cut these into relatively large slices because these apples will break down in the slow cooker or crock pot. So just cut them into your typical apple sizes, maybe a little bit thicker, something like this, and you're good to go. Out of all of these recipes, I would classify this one as being the easiest to make. So go ahead and add all of your apples, or as many as you can fit. My crock pot's a little small here. And just add those in. I would say roughly about 3/4 of the way full, maybe a little bit more. And then we're just going to fill this as high as we possibly can with water. Don't go too high here, but you can get pretty close to the top because this is not going to rise or fill over any more than you put it, and the apples are going to break down. So go ahead and fill it up about as high as you see me filling it here. Now I'm going to be adding 3 or 4 of these cinnamon sticks here. Sometimes these are hard to find on the normal spice aisle or the baking aisle, but if you can't find them there, they're probably definitely going to be on the Hispanic food section of your grocery store. That's where I got these, and check there if you can't find them. Next, I'm going to be adding an entire tablespoon of whole cloves. Be sure to use cinnamon sticks and whole cloves in this. Majority of the flavor here is coming from the spices. The apples will add a sweetness and a little bit of a tart taste, and we're essentially just making an apple tea here in this crock pot. So you want to use fresh ingredients, and there's just more flavor with whole cinnamon sticks and whole cloves. Give this a quick stir and then set the lid, cook on high for 4 to 6 hours or on low overnight. When you come back, you can remove the lid and your apples should be nice and cooked, and as you can see, it dropped down a little bit. And I don't have a potato masher, and that's what you should use here if you have one, but using a spatula, you can pull these apples and just press them against the side of the crock pot or slow cooker to help break these down. And these are so soft that they're probably going to break down with just a nice little stir. You can even use a big spoon if you don't have a spatula. Next, add half a cup of brown sugar. You can use light or dark. Stir this in and let it cook for an additional hour. For ultra smooth apple cider, I'm going to be double straining this. So grab yourself a large pot and a fine mesh sieve and just go ahead and strain all of the big chunks and clumps out of here, and go ahead and toss that in the trash can. Be sure to press out all of those juices. You really want to get those out of your apple mush here, so just press it down and get all of that out. I've added my apple cider back to my pitcher. Now I'm putting a coffee filter in my fine mesh sieve, and I'm just going to run my apple cider through this one more time to ensure all the little clumps get out. Now use cheesecloth here because this took a very long time, and then you will have filtered apple cider. For our peppermint mocha, we need to add 8 ounces of water to a large bowl. Next, sift in 1 1/4 cups of cocoa powder. And you can add a little bit of water if this gets too dry when you're mixing it, but go ahead and mix it together. I promise it will come together eventually. And then we are going to be adding in 1 cup of granulated sugar, slowly adding it in and mixing with our spoon until it is all completely incorporated. Now go ahead and add in 2 tablespoons of peppermint extract. Go ahead and get the full 2 tablespoons, and then add in a splash of vanilla Go ahead and mix this together, and then you have a peppermint mocha syrup. Look at this, guys. Doesn't this thing look pretty good? You can take this out of the refrigerator in the morning, throw a little bit in your cup of coffee, pour the hot coffee over it, and you've got a nice peppermint mocha in the morning. But today we're making it fancy, so grab a large mug if your frother doesn't work on your espresso machine, and go ahead and add some milk to it and whisk it while it is nice and hot to get it nice and foamy. Then we are going to pull a shot of espresso. So I'm making a double shot here. If you haven't seen my pumpkin spice latte video, I talk more about making this and that, so I'll leave a link to that down below. But pulling my shot of espresso here, and it should come out nice and frothy, just like this one. Alright, so I'm going to be adding in 4 teaspoons of my peppermint mocha syrup to my coffee mug. Then I'm going to be adding my double shot of espresso. Go ahead and mix that together until that syrup is completely dissolved, and then just top this off with your frothed milk. Alright everybody, so I just finished making all 4 of these drinks, and first I'm going to try the eggnog. Very spicy, nice and creamy. It's got a good sweetness to it, and I'm going to say that the eggnog is going to be extremely hard to beat. It's one of my all-time favorite Christmas drinks. I have made this before with this exact same recipe, so I kind of knew how good it was going to be. It's going to be hard to beat. Alright, so up next I have the apple cider. This stuff smelled absolutely amazing while it was cooking, so hopefully it tastes just as good. The cloves definitely come through on this. It has a nice spicy kick to it, but definitely not overpowering. Nice fruity and springy flavor coming from this. I would honestly be willing to drink this either cold or hot. I don't know, I might try it cold, but it is actually very good hot. I'm definitely putting the apple cider in second place for now. Alright, and third on the list we have the peppermint mocha. That's actually really good as well. It's got a nice, rich, dark, chocolatey flavor in it, as well as a nice, cool mint aftertaste. Definitely what you'd expect from a peppermint mocha. Alright, and finally we have the coveted hot chocolate. So, here it is. So I'm going to give first place a tie to the hot chocolate and the eggnog. The hot chocolate is definitely way different than the typical Swiss Miss, like powdery stuff. That is what I imagine is served on the Polar Express. It's rich, velvety, it's way more thick than the store-bought stuff, and overall it's just got more complex flavors. Yeah, all around it's just better in my opinion. And I think that the hot chocolate and eggnog are tied. Those are very different, and I think that they work very well together if you want to try them both. And then third place, I would probably put the apple cider, and last place the peppermint mocha. That's my opinion. I hope you all try these. Alright guys, and that is it. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Be on the lookout for part 3 of this series, 12 recipes of Christmas, where we're going to be making Christmas cookies. With that being said, guys, please hit the like button down below. Consider subscribing to this channel to see more content like this, and I will see you guys on the next one.